guys, my name is Holly, and today I'm going to be making a tutorial on how to make one of those cute little like cat beanies. I've seen them everywhere online, so I've been wanting to make one. They're actually surprisingly simple, so I would say this is going to be a beginner-friendly tutorial. But I thought I'd give you a little help on how to make it. These are the colors I'm going to be using. They're just the Craft Smart yarn from, I think I got them from Joann's or Michael's, either. And then I'm going to be using a 4mm hook. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to start with this peachy color. This is going to be my color A. So to start, we are going to make a slip knot. And we're going to chain 80 stitches. Okay, so once we have our chain of 80 stitches, we're going to go back to this very first stitch right here. We're going to slip stitch into that. So try and make sure everything is nice and straight and lined up. You're going to poke your hook into that very first stitch, just like that. You're going to yarn over, pull through, and then pull through again. So you should have a loop right now, just like this. Should be pretty stretchy. Now we are going to chain 2. And we're going to start our first row. So this pattern is done all in double crochets. So this first chain 2 does not count as a stitch. So we're going to work right into the next stitch. So this stitch right here, right where my finger is pointing, we're going to yarn over, go in through the stitch, yarn over again, pull through, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops. If I can, mine's being finicky. Pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over one more time, and pull through the last 2 loops. And there you should have your first double crochet. So we're going to do that again. We're going to yarn over, go into the stitch. We're going to yarn over again, pull through, yarn over, pull through the first 2 stitches, yarn over, and pull through the last 2 stitches. So now we've got 2 double crochets. I'm going to show you guys one more time. So we're going to yarn over, insert into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through the first 2 stitches, yarn over again, pull through the last 2. So this is what it should be looking like as you go along. I'm gonna fast forward to the end. If you need help, make sure to rewind the video, pause, slow it down as much as you need to. But I will see you again once I reach the end of this row. I've made it to the last stitch in my row. I just did my last double crochet into there. So now we're going to start the next row, but we're also going to change colors. So you can see the chain of 2 that you made right here. You're going to insert your hook into the top of that chain 2, right at the top. With color B, you're going to make a slip stitch, or a little, not slip stitch, slip knot, sorry. Just like that on your hook. So, gonna grab the knot on the hook, tighten it a little bit, pull through, and then you're gonna pull color B through your first stitch of your first loop of color A. So just like that. So this is what it should look like. So now what we're gonna do, so we're gonna do the same thing we did last time. we're gonna chain 2. And now it might be a little bit easier to see your stitches when we're working. So we have our chain 2, and our first stitch is right there. So we're gonna yarn over, insert into our first stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. So this is what it's gonna look like. And you can also like tighten each of like you can pull any of the loose strings to like tighten it up a little bit. It'll make it just look a little better. And I'll show you how to fasten it off once we're done. But so we're gonna continue with the yellow. Yarn over, insert into the first stitch or the second stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the next 2. Next stitch, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the next 2. And you know the drill by now, we're just going to continue around until we meet back up here. Okay, so I have made it around again. At this point, you should kind of have too many strings and you know what to do with. So what I'm going to do, this is my long peach string that's still attached to my skein of yarn. I'm going to give it a little bit of leeway, but all I'm going to do is cut it. And these are not scissors, these are in fact cuticle cutters, but I find they work really well for yarn. So we're going to chop that, just so that we can get this yarn out of the way. We're actually going to do the same with our yellow yarn. So this is the part of color B that is still attached to the skein. So I'm going to leave a little leeway, and then I'm going to cut. Make sure you leave enough extra so that you can do your next little slip stitch. So at this point, you still have a lot of like tails hanging out. I'm going to show you how we deal with these at the end. There is a way that you can weave them in while you're crocheting. I would say that's more of a like, not advanced tutorial, but it's a little bit harder than what I'm showing. So let's give this a go. So I made it to the end again. We're going to see our chain 2. So there's 1, 2. I'm going to go into that top chain. I'm going to get my color A again that we just cut. I'm going to make my slip stitch. I keep saying slip stitch. I mean slip knot. Slip knot. There we go. We're going to pull that back through, and then we're going to pull it through the yellow. We're going to pull everything tight at the back. And again, we'll pull it extra tight when we're done, and I will show you how we do that at the very end. We're going to just start the whole process again. Going to chain 1, chain 2. I'm going to grab all the strings and just kind of pull them out of the way. We have chain 2. Going to yarn over. You can see our very first stitch is right there. So it's the one that's right after the chain, basically. So I yarned over, in, yarn over, there we go. We're just going to keep doing that all the way around again. And then you're just going to repeat this for a while. Once I finish this section, I'll let you know how many rows mine ends up being. It's going to differ depending on how big you want your hat to be, how much of like a little brim you want. Depends on the person. Okay, so I ended up doing 13 rows of double crochet. So I started and I ended with the same color. I decided not to have like the little fold up brim on mine, but if you want that, make yours a little bit longer so that you have enough to actually fold it up. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna deal with all these extra strings that you should have. So to do that, we're gonna turn it inside out and we're gonna tie the strings together. So I'll show you that close up right now. Okay, So we're going to take our little tube, we are going to turn it inside out. And so I'm going to start tying at the very beginning. So where I began my hat, all the way at the bottom. So as you can see, you're going to have the spare strings in pairs, kind of, because you have the string that you started with and the string that you ended with. So this is actually really simple. All we're going to do is we're going to make sure they're pulled nice and tight, and we're going to tie them in one knot. And don't pull this all the way tight because it's going to cause some bunching if you do that. So just have it like a nice relaxed knot there. And then I'm going to knot it maybe 2 more times. So try and keep it reasonably tight. These next couple knots do very tight so it stays. And then once you've done that, the easiest way to do this, you can weave your ends in. I find that really tedious. I typically just cut them because this is going to be on the inside of our hat. We won't be able to see this. Maybe you could weave in the ones on the brim, but for all the rest, I just recommend cutting them. As soon as I tie them 3 times and then I cut them. So let's do that. Also, look, I found actual scissors. So we're going to go really close to the knot. Just snip, snip. And then we can see that on the other side, you can't see it at all. So now we're going to move on to our next color. So we have the yellow. So again, we're going to pull the yellow nice and tight on both sides. Make sure it's all the way in. And we're going to take the 2 yellows, tie them together. 3 knots. So there's 1. There's 2. There's 3. And then chop. And I always try and cut pretty close to the knot. I always make sure that I'm not cutting the knot off, but it just looks a little better, and it's going to be comfier if you don't have all those annoying strings hanging off. And now the next color. Gonna pull tight, pull tight. 1, 2, 3. Snip and snip. Okay, and then I'm just going to continue that for the rest of the hat. Okay, so this is what mine looks like when it's done. So now I'm going to turn it back, right side out. You can see that the seam looks a lot better now. That is what it looks like. So now we're going to do what makes it have the actual cat ears, which is we're going to take one of these little needles. We're going to use this color, so the color that I began with. And at the very top, so on the last row that I did, all we're going to do is we're going to do a whip stitch and stitch all of this together to make it closed. And usually when I'm sewing things together, I don't actually keep the yarn attached to the skein. I'll kind of just pull a big amount out. Always pull more than you need. And then just chop it. So you can see I have quite a lot that I just pulled out. And now we're going to begin sewing it together. So I think that this hat looks better if the seam, even though it's still not super visible, I think it's better if the seam is on one of the edges. So fold your hat so that the seam is right on one of the edges. And just pick a corner to start at. So I'm going to start at this corner. I'm going to fold that together. And all I'm going to do is insert the needle. I'm so used to saying hook. And pull the yarn pretty far through. You don't have to tie this end off or anything like that. I'm just going to leave it for now. And so to do a whip stitch, all we're going to do is, you see how the yarn is coming out of this side? We're just going to do what we did again. We're going to poke in on this side. And again, it doesn't matter where you poke because you won't be able to see it anyways. So we're going to take this. I'm going to poke the needle. I kind of do it in each stitch. I just find that easier and it's usually the most secure. And we're going to just pull through again. I probably got a bit too much yarn out, but I personally think it's better to have too much yarn rather than not enough. And now we're just going to keep continuing to do that around the hat, or across the top of the hat. So I'm going to insert our needle in, through to the other side, pull through. Okay, I definitely got way too much yarn. You don't need to cut this much yarn. Okay, so once you're at the end, you should have it fully closed. See what I mean, where you can't really see the seam? I think it looks really nice, actually. So you have this string at the end. Usually what I do, since you're going to be able to see this one, you're not going to want to just tie it in a knot. What I do is I insert the hook and I make myself a little loop. Oh, pulling the wrong one. There we go. I make myself a little loop like that, and then I insert the hook into that loop and pull it nice and tight. So that does kind of like a little mini knot there that's not as noticeable. But now what you are going to want to do is you're going to want to weave in the ends. So this is basically just hiding the extra in the hat. So you're just going to go under, over. Don't pull this too tight. Then you're going to go over, under. This is your typical like sewing. Over, under. And then you're just going to do it back the other way. You're going to go over, under, over, under. Once you've done that back and forth twice, I'll pull it a little bit so it's nice and taut, and then just snip right there. So now that kind of hides it in the top of the hat. So if you know what you're looking for, you can see it. So like I can see that it's right there, but it's not going to be noticeable at all when you're wearing it. So now I'm going to go and do that to the other side of my hat. So have this little excess here. Going to thread it through the needle. Gonna make my little loop. Loop is right there. Gonna pull it through that loop. Got a little knot. Now I'm gonna go over, under, over, under, 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 over, under, pull it through. And again, I'm not pulling it too tight because I don't want to pull that in. And then I'm just going to do it back the other way. And then I'm going to snip. All right, so you're going to put your hat on. It's going to look a little silly. Pull it down a lot at the back. And then you can see these cat ears kind of shape. They kind of form. Then you're just going to kind of like poke them in. And again, adjust a little bit. And then you have a cat ear beanie. And it's so cute and I love it. If you guys have any questions about this pattern, I'll put it all in the description. I'll write it all out. But feel free to ask me questions in the comments and I'll answer them as best as I can. Feel free to adjust the pattern as much as you want to make it fit you perfectly. And please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more crochet videos. All right, bye-bye.